yeah, let's develop it. That's it.
So one thing you could do in terms of proactive anti-repression, if any of you guys and gals was involved in writing the software or building the hardware for that kind of stuff, this is your chance for doing whistleblowing in a relatively surveillance-proof environment. So on top of that, does anyone have questions or comments?
Well, I like your presentation very much, and I personally understand the problem very well, but still I have a very critical question, because as a kind of devil's advocate, the question is, what is the argument? Because we have an aging population voting conservative to law and order political parties, at least in the Netherlands. That's the new fashion, I think. Schäuble is also getting broad support. That law and order and security, that's of paramount importance, and not very many people are interested in this kind of things. So if you're starting to protest, I think you need some strong arguments, because almost your entire presentation, I looked specifically for that, could be explained as just a story how wonderful people are doing everything to put everything under surveillance. So you need, I think, also for the political level, good arguments for the opponents of such a policy. And I think that, well, they're pretty hard to find, because the mentality, the prevailing wind direction is the other way around.
Okay then? Should I respond directly? I think you're right, that's a big problem. So for example, in '87 you had the census in Germany, so the Volkszählung, and there was a very, very large opposition against that. So people went to jail for not being counted. And this is really gone. This is, nobody can imagine that anymore. And so the surveillance and control is much worse. And so what we can do only is like to try to, at least in the sectors that are critical or a little bit critical. But I get much more optimistic, for example, by the demonstrations of the Freedom Not Fear, more or less coalition. But my criticism on them is that they are a one-point movement, as we call it in Germany, Ein-Punkt-Bewegung, and they want to be that. So most of them don't want to care about other issues. And so I think the first step should be that each movements are aware of the others, and try to, well, overcome, I don't know, their borders, their struggles. And I'm much more optimistic by the crisis now. Because, for example, what I mentioned about the riots that are expected by the IMF, I take that serious. So I think this is not just propaganda to get more money for the police. Well, it is for sure, but the problem is real. So the people are more and more uprising by climate issues. So as you might know, for example, climate and migration are the top issues as possible threats for security authorities. And so I think the conditions will zuspitzen, increase, get worse.
Is it known why the hell the army was allowed to operate inside Germany to photograph the G8 Protestant whatsoever?
There is a court case against it, so there's an appeal against it, but it's, as far as I know, it is not said yet that it was not legal. So it is more the opposite. So everybody from military and police was happy that it worked very well, I would say.
Hi. About the police meeting in Stockholm, what kind of support are you looking for? Are you looking for unions and animal rights activists and people who are directly affected by the police oppression? Or, since I'm from Stockholm, I'm local.
Thank you very much for that question. I cut it that because of the time. For sure, we are looking for all support by all different groups, especially from Swedish groups. So for sure, we will not have, it makes no sense to make a European mobilization to a mass demonstration to Stockholm, because nobody would come, because also there is the Copenhagen summit in December, so nobody will make his or her way 2 times to Scandinavia to make a big protest. But we have also some contacts to Swedish groups that are dealing with migration that like the idea very much. So for sure there will be a demonstration, smaller one in Scandinavia. But it is not worked out yet what the campaign will have as its output or as its end. So the groups involved are now State Watch, that you might know. It's how to call it, civil liberty? No, not really, but activist civil liberty group from UK, the Transnational Institute from Holland, and migration group from Sweden, and we from Gipfelsoli, and we are discussing now what to do. My proposal is to make something like an online demonstration maybe at the European Commission, but this could not be the only target, this could not be the only goal. And what we are doing now, we are writing a call. The call will be ready soon. And then we want to have a discussion what the campaign will be. And I don't like the campaigns where you say, okay, you have now the day of action at the 15th of November, and everybody should act at the 15th of November and make some big mass demonstrations. Because in every country you have different dates when it fits to your maybe parliamentarian decisions on data retention or whatever. So some might do it in August, others do it in December, but that it's more or less linked to the new 5 years plan, because it is of very great importance. So the new 5 years plan is not a law that they will decide, but a framework that in the 5 years should be adopted in the member countries. So, and because of this, it's of great importance. I have to stop? Was that? Oh.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. Yeah. I guess. Okay. One problem with this court case is with these tornado pictures of G8 is probably the same as in Gorleben. They always have court cases that some practices of the police forces were not legal, but they just do it, and the court cases are afterwards. And it's great to have a court case there. It was illegal, but they have done it, and they just don't care. And Gorleben shows that they just do it again and again and again, and then they lose in court, but they don't care about that it wasn't legal, but they just do it. So probably if there's another G8 camp somewhere else and they're going to take pictures again, they might lose the court case, but they just don't care.
Mostly takes 5 years, and then they say, okay, it was not really right what you have done, it was not quite legal, but yeah, it's bullshit. But okay, the lawyers, they need it, because for future, dealing with other prohibitions of protest, they need decisions, so positive decisions, so the lawyers always force us to appeal against it, but I see it as well, like you.
Hi. What do you think is the reason for the difference in the worldview between people like Schäuble and us? I mean, he thinks we are evil, we think he's evil.
You mean we should be mediated?
No, what do you think is the reason for the difference in worldview? Is he plainly evil? I'm using him only as an example now. Mad, or what? Have you any thoughts on that? Where the difference comes from? What are the motivations of people like Schäuble, for example?
So you want me to talk about the class issue?
Okay. If you think that's the reason, then yeah, just say the word and I know what you mean.
I don't know, so we have many differences, but I'm not sure about the direction of the question. So is it like like he asked before, so how to get more attraction in the broader population, or what is the question? So where's the difference between Schäuble and me? So I don't like him, he doesn't like me probably.
No, the question is more about, normally you can reason with people. And I had the experience in my personal life, if you try to reason with people, you always come up with something that works, or most of the time. Here it doesn't seem possible. So I wonder where that is coming from.
Well, actually, my acting against the Ministers of Interior comes from that they are acting against me. So, as I mentioned, I'm part of a solidarity group that was involved in many protests, and there had been lots of repression, and we are trying to help the people in court cases or monitoring the police, finding out the new developments, making some press relations on that to focus on that a little bit. So this is why I find it very important to act against it. But that's not an answer to your question, no?
No, because my question would be more about what your impression is. Why are they acting against you? Why is Schäuble acting against animal rights groups? Schäuble only as a...
Because it's a system question. So for sure, if I say people are protesting, so they are mostly not harmless. So many of them don't want a capitalist system. Many of them want emancipatory conditions, but for everybody. For example, I would say no borders. No one is illegal. So everybody who wants to benefit from their products or from their labor should come and do it. So, for example, and most of the Ministers of Interior doesn't like that idea. So maybe it's a bit...
It's his job. Ideologic, but...
Yeah, probably. Different ideology, maybe.
Well, you said mostly harmless. So not all the demonstrations are actually harmless. Some are violent and some are illegal. So why don't you try to stop them from doing illegal and violent acts? Isn't that helping the argument of all this surveillance? A lot of it is caused by real trouble.
So the question is, what are we talking about? So are we talking about now about the riots in Athens, or are we talking about file sharing and copying, I don't know, making illegal downloads of Windows products? So this is also illegal. So it's always a cultural decision. What is illegal? It's always a political decision. There's nothing natural that is illegal. And also protest, for sure. Sometimes protest is turning, how they call it, violent. I would not use that expression, but I don't find it so bad to try to stop people who decide about our future, about my future, by a barricade. I don't find that so bad. It's an ideological difference also.
Okay, so I'd say that would have been the last question. We need to wind down to make space for whoever comes after us. So think about whistleblowing if you have the chance, and otherwise let's thank Matthias again for his nice talk.
Thank you.